Hey, hello everybody. How you doing? As usual. Hope you're doing good. I figured I was gonna start doing my thoughts on every UK Beatle album. I say UK because that is the one that's the catalog that the Beatles consider the true catalog. I know the nostalgia with everybody, even me, for the US albums out here in America. I mean, I actually thought the Beatles went in and recorded an album called Something New. I didn't realize that it was a an album put together by Dave Dexter and the Capitol executives. But I figured I would, talk about every album that they did and my thoughts on them and some personal talk. And I figured we start at the very beginning because that's a very good place to start. And what better way than 1963's Please Please Me, or to be more precise, Please Please Me with Love Me Do and 12 other songs. That is the complete title, if you must know, even though it doesn't say it on the spine, but they are letting you know that the Beatles sing Please Please Me as well as their other big hit, and some other cool stuff is on here too. That was the initial thinking on these albums. This was not a concept album. It wasn't thought of in terms as a concept album. This was a collection of their hits and some other cool songs. But if you were a Beatle fan, a young teen in the UK at the time, and you bought this album, you heard it. You heard two very consistent, complete album sides where there's a mood that is sustained throughout the album. However, even though it's, coincidence that it all goes together, that it seems like it goes together, but it does. And to me, it's just the raw power of these guys being in the studio. Now, 4 songs were already released. You have the single of Love Me Do backed with P.S. I Love You, and you have the single of Please Please Me backed with Ask Me Why. The rest of the songs were done February 11th, 1963, in a big 10-hour session. I think they began in the morning, they had a lunch break, and then they began into the evening. And John, in particular, had a very, very, very bad head cold. And you could hear it, especially on Anna. Especially, you hear the stuffiness in his voice. And how he was able to do it, I do not know. But that's one of the cool things about it. I think George or Paul might have also had a cold, but John had a very bad cold. And after they recorded this session, they had to cancel some, according to Mark Lewison's book, The Beatles Recording Sessions, a couple days after, because he got very sick, or I should say sicker. So hearing John with a head cold, powering through these songs is great, and just hearing the sheer confidence of these guys. Their first recording session for an album, their first album, just the confidence. I mean, these guys did this album in a day, one day, and they did a lot of their cover songs. Of course, you have Anna, Chains. That's a cover. Ringo does Boys, which I always thought was kind of strange at the time, but it would totally work now. With the type of song it is. And probably my favorite Beatles cover, and still one of my favorite John vocals, Baby It's You. And then, of course, A Taste of Honey. I love the way Paul sings, tasting much sweeter, much sweeter. Of course, Twist and Shout. Now, I remember hearing in the anthology from Paul that they saved it as the last song because it would have ripped John's vocal cords to shreds. But if you have Mark Lewison's The Beatles recording sessions, they had to decide on what the last song was. They had recorded everything and they needed one more song to record for the album. And it was after they went for a tea break, all of them finally decided on Twist and Shout. And John would have to be the one singing it. And his voice was going by that time. Anybody who has a head cold, you guys know what it does to your voice. I mean, in my case, I could sing one of my favorite songs, no problem. 16 Tons by Tennessee Ernie Ford. And I nail it when I have my bass voice, when I have a head cold. So John was, I don't mean this to sound as crude as it's going to sound, but you can hear the phlegm buildup in his throat. And I could just imagine how he felt after singing it. You kind of hear him at the end go, ah, like he's about to pass out. So the original songs these guys did, these are all McCartney and Lennon compositions as opposed to Lennon and McCartney. Misery, that came from John's pen. Ask Me Why is such a beautiful ballad. Nobody talks about that one that much. And that came from, I think that's more John on that one. That is such a great tune. And I wish more people would cover that song. It almost reminds me of like a Burt Bacharach kind of a thing at the time. And of course, Please Please Me, which is a lot more nastier than people think. As I have to tell sometimes my fellow Stones fans that the Beatles could be just as nasty as the Rolling Stones. However, the Beatles were able to back it up with a nice poppy sound. Last night I said these words to my girl. How come you never even try, girl? Read the lyric. Last night I said these words to my girl. How come you never even try, girl? So, and of course, Love Me Do, P.S. I Love You. I really want to talk about, though, everybody talks about the Beatles went from I Want to Hold Your Hand to Sgt. Pepper, but, forget that progression. Let's talk about how they go from Love Me Do to There's a Place. There's a Place has a maturity to it. It's not really a love song to a girl. It's about hiding away when you feel lonely and depressed, and you could see that's got John totally over it, all on it. He was addressing his insecurities at a young age, and that's another song I love, and I'm surprised not a lot of people have covered that. A beautiful song, a brilliant song. I first heard it on Beatles on the Rarities album that came out in I think it was 1980. And that's where I first heard it. But an incredible debut. Just the confidence, the playing these guys had. It's like you could just tell these guys had energy. In America, this album came out on the VJ label as Introducing the Beatles, if anybody from that time remembers. And VJ, this was the only Beatles product they had, and they all of a sudden hit big with I Want to Hold Your Hand, so VJ tried to milk as much out of this as they could. They reissued the album as Songs and Pictures from the Fab Four, and they reissued it again under the guise of the Beatles versus the Four Seasons. Each of them trading their biggest vocal punches. It was basically a repackaging of a Four Seasons greatest hits album and Introducing the Beatles. In America, though, most of this stuff came out on the early 1965 Capitol release, because Capitol finally got the rights to these songs under the name The Early Beatles, which I got from my Aunt Helen on the Orange Capitol label after my adenoids were taken out when I was 7 years old. back in the day. But, and I didn't know the history at that time, or what the early Beatles actually was, or what it was supposed to be. You think a 7-year-old is going to read those liner notes on the back of the cover? No. I'm going to take a look at the cool Beatles on the front cover, and those other Beatles albums that I wanted to eventually get, that they're showing underneath. But once I found out that this was their first UK album, as I got older, I mean pre-CD, I sought this out, and I could never find it, as you know, I wasn't going to Beatlefest at the time. But I eventually found I eventually got the CD when it came out, and I've been playing it ever since. An incredible debut. What more can you say about it? It's just starting off on the right foot with the Please Please Me record. Amazing. Came out in '63. When you think about the Beatles and all they accomplished, it is a short time span. Short time span. First album in '63, and the last 2 albums were recorded in '69. Short time frame. Incredible album, incredible story, incredible obsession that we have. I will talk to you guys again. Give me some of your thoughts down below, and talk to you again soon.